Well, good day everybody. This is Joe Van Cleve and welcome back to The Tape Project. Today I'm going to be comparing two different shoebox sized compact cassette recorders. The first one is going to be this Radio Shack CTR-111 that I've featured before on this series. And the other recorder is going to be a new one to this series. This is the Panasonic RQ-2102. So I acquired the realistic recorder with its original box and packing material and everything, and it comes with an AC adapter. So of course the adapter plugs in the wall. You get DC 6 volts out of the connector into the side of the recorder, and then it comes with one of these little monaural earpieces, the old style earpiece. And there's also a shorting plug in the kit that you can plug in when you want to erase a tape. You plug it into the input. So those were the accessories that came with the Radio Shack. On the other hand, the Panasonic recorder, I only got it with the recorder itself, and there's an AC power cord. So it does not use an AC adapter. It has AC that plugs straight into the side of the recorder. Okay, comparing the size of these two units, the Panasonic is 258 millimeters by 138 by 53 millimeters thick, whereas the Radio Shack is 244 by 143 by 44. So the Radio Shack one is definitely a little smaller. You might be able to see there in all three dimensions. As far as weight goes, the Panasonic without batteries and without a tape in it and without the power cord attached is 850 grams. And the Radio Shack unit without batteries or a tape is 611 grams. So, okay, let's look at the external features of the machine. Of course, both machines feature your standard cassette recorder controls: record, play, rewind, fast forward, stop, eject, and pause. There are, however, other differences to the other controls. So for instance, the Radio Shack one has a record indicator light that kind of functions as a VU meter, and it also is a battery indicator, whereas the Panasonic doesn't have that feature, but it does have a tape counter in contrast. Now on the left side of both machines you'll find the inputs. So on the Radio Shack one you're going to have the DC connector, the 6 volt input, whereas on the Panasonic it's going to have the AC input connector. And then next you're going to have on the Radio Shack an earphone and an auxiliary jack input, whereas the Panasonic just has mic input and speaker headphone output. The Radio Shack one has, of course, a mic input. It also has a remote start-stop connector. The Panasonic has a hole for a remote start-stop connector, but there's no actual connector there, so there was probably a higher-end model that had that feature. And then, of course, both units have volume control. The Panasonic's is a little further inboard from the front, closer to the other connectors, where the Radio Shack one is closer to the front edge. And both recorders have an extendable handle to carry the units with. And of course, speakers. Now both recorders can also be powered by C-cell batteries, 4 C-cells. The Panasonic, the cover, you pull on this little lever and it hinges away from 2 little tabs right here. And the Radio Shack one slides open like that. Of course, it takes 4 C-cell batteries, which we'll load up in the Radio Shack unit right now. The Radio Shack unit is ready to go. We'll eject it, and we will pop a tape in it. And let's do a test recording using the built-in microphone. Okay, this is the test of the Radio Shack compact cassette recorder model CTR-111. Joe out. Okay, we don't have a tape counter. We don't really know where we started at, so what I generally do is go into play mode and then use the review feature to listen for when the audio comes back at the beginning. This is the test of the Radio Shack compact cassette recorder model CTR-111. Joe out. So there was a lot of hiss in that recording, a lot of playback hiss, and you can also hear a little bit of motor noise from the fact that the microphone is mounted into the plastic top of the unit, and there's probably vibrations from the motor and the transport mechanism that are being induced into that, and so, you know, it just has interference. Of course, you know, the Panasonic unit is also plastic, so let's pull the batteries out of this and switch them to the Panasonic and do the same test. Let's do a self-recording here. Okay, this is the test of the Panasonic RQ-2102, and by the way, that model number RQ-2102 sounds like a secret drone aircraft model number. I don't know why I'm thinking that, but anyways, the Panasonic Slimline compact cassette recorder. Okay, Joe out. Okay, so since I zeroed the tape counter near the beginning of the recording, I can just rewind it, hopefully back to the same point. Oops, rewind. Okay, let's play it. I don't know where my volume is set at. The Panasonic RQ-2102, and by the way, that model number RQ-2102 sounds like a secret drone aircraft model number. Okay, Joe out. Okay, there's a little bit of tape hiss evident in that recording and the playback of it, but I thought the frequency response was just a little bit, to my ears, it sounded a little bit better. I'm curious, though, how it's going to perform if we pop in an external microphone of some kind on both of these and test them out. So let's do that next. Okay, so let's test the Radio Shack one first. Now, I've put the C-cell batteries back into the Radio Shack one, and I'm powering the Panasonic one from the power cord, since the power cord I already have plugged in. So let's put the tape in. And so I'm going to use this Shure lens hopper video microphone, and I have it mounted on a mini tripod, and the coiled cord is rather short, but I have an extension cable here, a 3.5 millimeter extension cable. I'm going to pop that into the mic input on the Radio Shack, and then I'm going to turn on the lens hopper. Now, it has several dB settings, 3 of them, and I'm going to have it set to minus 10 dB. I don't really know how either of these is going to work with that way. So let's go ahead and do our test on the Radio Shack one here. So let's... Okay, this is a test of the Radio Shack CTR-111 with the Shure lens hopper microphone, and I can tell from the flashing red LED that we're peaking quite a bit, so I expect this recording to be quite loud, might even be distorted, and this microphone, even at minus 10 dB, is probably a little too hot for this recorder, so I need to like step back a little bit and don't talk as loud. But okay, let's stop this and check it out. So one of the things I noticed about this Radio Shack recorder is I can't really put it into play mode and then hit review and listen to the high-speed voice, so it's just the transport doesn't offer that feature. So hey, this is a test of the Radio Shack CTR-111 with the Shure lens hopper microphone. Actually, it sounds pretty decent. Now, that hiss that we heard earlier is gone. So the hiss was primarily from either the onboard mic or the preamps for the onboard mic, but the hiss was gone. Now, I expect in a louder setting, like if you were outdoors and with loud traffic noise or construction equipment or something, this might distort. But it seems like in this kind of quiet studio environment, not talking super loud into this particular microphone, it sounds pretty decent. So let's try the same test into the Panasonic. I'm curious how that's going to perform. You know, I've reviewed the Radio Shack unit before, and I did an external mic test on it before, so I kind of knew what to expect. But this is the first time that I will be testing the Panasonic with an external microphone. So let's pop it into the mic jack. Our microphone is turned on. We're about at the same distance. Okay, this is a test of the Panasonic RQ-2102 drone recorder. I still say that sounds like a drone. With an external microphone, the Shure VP82. Okay, rewind this guy. Okay. Of the Panasonic RQ-2102 drone recorder, that still say that sounds like a drone. Almost thought I heard more background noise in the Panasonic, and I'm going to have to go back and play back this recording again and see. So there's the beginning of the Panasonic. Let me rewind it just a little bit more so we go into the end of the Radio Shack recording. Here's the Radio Shack recording. Again, set to the minus 10 dB setting, and I can tell from the flashing. Okay, this is a test of the Panasonic RQ-2102 drone recorder. That still say that sounds. Yeah, so it sounds to me like the Radio Shack unit actually was quieter. It had less background noise in that recording, and as soon as it switched over to the Panasonic unit, it started to get noticeably louder or noisier in the background. And I don't know if that's due to the design of the recorder or if it's actually just the condition of this particular one. Now, keep in mind, I have cleaned the heads on the Panasonic. One of the major usability differences, I think, is the fact that the Panasonic does have the tape counter. Again, trying to rewind one of these tapes on the Radio Shack unit, and if you want to go into the review mode and listen to the high-speed backward speech, you can hear a gap in the recording where it gets quiet, and then that'll tell you the beginning of your recording. You can't really do it with this Radio Shack. I haven't been able to. So finding your recordings is a kind of a more of an issue if you're wanting to do that with the recorder out in the field. On the other hand, having the peak meter, the VU meter light, the LED, there's a peak indicator, is pretty handy, because if you're out in a noisy environment and you're looking at that light and it's solid red, you know that you should do something with your microphone to reduce the intensity of the sound. So both are interesting machines. I think the Panasonic is kind of more like an industrial, heavier duty unit. Again, I'm surprised at the results. I expected the Panasonic to be a little higher quality. I think maybe the built-in microphone on the Panasonic, on its recording, definitely sounded better. But with the external mic, yeah, I'm really surprised. Okay, there's one other little test I was going to do with the Panasonic just to give it a fair shake, is perhaps the input level on the microphone is not optimized for the Panasonic's preamp. So I'm going to set my lens hopper microphone from minus 10 to 0 dB, so it'll be a little hotter of a signal coming out of this microphone. And I'm just going to zero the tape counter and we'll start recording. Okay, this is the Panasonic. Okay, Joe out. Okay, since I zeroed my tape counter at the beginning of this, I'm going to just rewind just before it, and you'll be able to hear the old recording at minus 10 dB, then it'll switch to the new recording at 0 dB. Here we go. RQ-2102 drone recorder. That still say that sounds like a drone. With an external microphone, the Shure VP. Okay, this is the Panasonic RQ-2102 recorder with the Shure lens hopper microphone, now set to 0 dB output instead of minus 10, and we're going to see. So it sounds to my ears that the background hiss was the same, it's just the recording got louder, which is kind of what you would expect. There's two things going on. First of all, it's true the Radio Shack unit doesn't have quite the high frequencies that the Panasonic does in playback, but you can still hear that background hiss going on. So it's kind of unfortunate that, you know, it seems like the Panasonic actually plays pre-recorded tapes pretty good. It has a better fidelity, but somehow in the recording of it, the record section, it does put out more noise, background noise, regardless of what kind of mic you're using. Whereas the Radio Shack one, the fidelity isn't quite as good overall, but it does have a better sounding recording, less background noise. So that's kind of an interesting comparison. Okay, another test I'd like to do between both recorders is I'd like to compare both of them playing back a pre-recorded tape. Now, because of copyright concerns, I'm not going to play back a commercial pre-recorded tape, but I happen to have a cassette that was given to me by Ted Monk, and this is back from 1989 when he was in a band. Now, the name of the band is written on the tape is NLM, and I don't remember what NLM stands for, and I'm sure Ted will correct me down in the comments. But anyway, a cool cassette he sent me. So there was some music on this from a practice session. So let's just play it. So this will start off with the Panasonic recorder. So nice and bright sounding. I can hear the high frequencies pretty good on that one. Now let's play the Radio Shack. It's obvious the Radio Shack one is, you know, the whole frequency response range is more mid-range and more like voice in playback. You don't have that brilliant high frequencies from, what was that, the cymbals or whatever. You don't have quite as many lows. So definitely the Panasonic sounded better to me. It's just unfortunate on this particular model, the recording seems to be noisy. And I don't know if that's a circuit problem or a design problem or whatever, or maybe the heads need to be demagnetized. But anyway, my feelings about both these recorders is, if you're interested in doing compact cassette-based field recording, and you're not concerned about the fidelity of like a digital field recorder, you want basic, good, compact cassette performance and a reasonably inexpensive price, my recommendation is actually you probably want to get both. And obviously, the Radio Shack one is a better recorder. It has better record sound. It also has the peak meter, the VU LED, the red LED indicator for peak. So that's a useful feature out in the field. It's not as useful in playing back your recordings out in the field because of the lack of a tape counter and the lack of being able to do the review mode while you're hearing the sound in backwards high speed mode. But just for strictly recording, this is a lighter machine, slightly smaller, and has a superior audio quality when using an external microphone, either with a dynamic mic or a condenser mic like the video mic here. However, for playback, if you don't have a full-size cassette deck, a higher fidelity cassette deck, and you want something fairly inexpensive, if you can find one of these Panasonics, it seems like the Panasonic unit just has better quality playback, much wider frequency response. The speaker, maybe the amplifier inside here might be better quality as well. But the only downfall of Panasonic, as I see it, is, at least on this particular unit, is the quality of the recording is just noisy. The background noise is bad. So I couldn't recommend one of these by itself as a standalone single compact cassette recorder. I gotta recommend in these particular two samples I have, neither of them are ideal. You'd almost want to have both of them. That was the little comparison between the Radio Shack CTR-111 and the Panasonic RQ-2102 recorder.